Hi, party people. This is Lola Shiombola, founder of Nora Labs and your host for Black Genius. You are watching the Harambe 10 by 10 series, in which we are highlighting 10 market creating innovators from the Harambe Entrepreneur Alliance. I became a Harambean in 2019 and super proud to be one and amongst really talented, visionary people building the new Africa, building a new world. So today we'll be joined by Nelly Wandji. She is the founder of Moonlook and the Nelly Wandji Gallery in Paris, which is now virtual. She's an esteemed cultural curator and advocate of Africa's creative industry. Nelly transitioned in 2014 from managing selective distribution for international luxury brands like Tiffany Co and Dior. And now we have the pleasure of having her here. She now works on projects with UNESCO and is always a champion for African creatives all over the world. So please snap your fingers and help me bring on Nelly Wandji. Hi, Nelly.
Hi, dear. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm very good as well. Thank you.
Thank you
Happy
so
to be
much for
with
being
you.
here with me today. I'm excited to know more about your story. So we met at the Harambe Symposium in 2019 in Bretton Woods, and I remember having a lot of conversations with you about just the power of African art and the opportunity economically, and how we really needed to invest more in authentic African art. And everything that you've curated from Moonlook and for your gallery. Anyone who is not following Nelly Wandji on Instagram, please go and do so now. Follow Moonlook on Instagram. You will see some of the quality products that are coming out of the continent, and that really, set the stage for a new standard for African artisanship. So, Nelly, I just want to hear about Paris because I know you're in Paris right now. We were
Yeah.
talking the other day about how the lockdown has been rough. What has been the impact of COVID on you personally, on your enterprise? How are you kind of navigating this moment?
Well, Paris is a little bit weird now because everything, I mean, most of the things are closed. Like, especially the things, if you've been to Paris, you know that what makes Paris is the brasserie. So it's like the bars, the restaurants, and they have been closed for almost a year now. So it's very weird to be in Paris and not being able to go to a cafe, to a terrace or something like this. Um, Otherwise, well, galleries are open, but museums are closed. Few department stores are open, but all around, I would say that me personally, I have not been affected that much by COVID. Even in my family, I touch the wood. Nobody's been affected by COVID in terms of health. But I think because everything going on around us, you just get affected because everybody is so in a not so good mood, and business wise things are a little bit slow. So yeah, I have to deal with it. But right when COVID started, I was just like, I was supposed to go out of my maternity leave, and because of COVID, I would say I had a longer maternity leave. I was just having my first child, so it was very pleasant to stay at home with her. I mean, I'm still like watching over her, staying at home with her. So I think COVID for me was a very special experience, I would say. And business wise, I have few projects going on. We have few projects like digital project, but also we're planning on a physical project. We hope it's not going to be postponed for June. Well, yeah, everything so far, I would say it's okay for now.
Mhm.
But if it lasts longer, then I think it's going to become more and more critical. And we've tried with our different programming to be there for our different artists, creative, keep like promote them, show what they're doing, and push them out there. But for some of them, it's also very, very difficult at home, on the continent, because most of our designer and creative are based on the continent. So we are trying to be there for them as much as we can, and offer them like different projects to be part of.
So can you expand a little bit on Moonlook, the business model, how you support artists, and your, what how you've transitioned pre-COVID
Yeah,
to now?
yeah. Well, basically, Moonlook is a platform where we promote brands and artisan brands. So basically, it's like creative based on the continent who are tapping into their heritage to create fashion and accessories. Um, we the visible part of it is the platform where you can actually, if you're a designer or an artisan, you can go online, you can request to join her platform, we reference your product, and then we give access to her customer, we give access to her customer via the platform. So but aside of that, one of the biggest part that I've been working on, and that is going to be unveiled in upcoming month, is branding and consultancy for brands, for entrepreneurs who want to invest into creating a brand or work with artisans to create products. We help them brand themselves and brand what they're doing, to come up with go-to-market strategies to help them sell what they're doing. So that part is going to come up a little bit later in the year. We're going to push that a little bit further. At the same time, we will be launching an accelerator, within which we also will be a little bit like a business angel for brands, like investing money into the infrastructure, maybe to buy like to have a proper workshop to create what they're doing, create either fashion or accessories, and also help them tap into global market opportunities just by being well referenced online, having a proper marketing campaigns, and just pushing what they're doing forward. So for the last I would say now Moonlook is going to be 6 years in 2021. So for the last 6 years, we were just like a platform, just showcasing, but we were not going into, doing the consultancy and the branding or investing into brand. Now we will narrow a little bit the brand we invest our time into, and then infuse a little bit of cash into helping them create products of high quality and go to international markets, but also tap into opportunities on local markets. So that's for one part of Moonlook dedicated to fashion and accessories. But the other part of Moonlook, which is more dedicated to art and design, is carried by my gallery under the umbrella of my gallery. And my gallery, basically, what we do with the gallery is that we curate art. So you have like painters, photographers, you can have sculptors, and now we were pushing a big segment, which is going to be like more like craft, but very high quality craft, and that segment is very much carried by the gallery. And so I curate different events. I showcase those makers and artists, and we organize with several partners in Paris, for instance, show where people can come and see. Because now I've closed the gallery because of everything happening. So yeah. So basically, that's the two big part within the, I would say, the creative industry that we are invested into.
So how do you choose the artists that you work with and the creatives that you work with? What is your philosophy on art, and how do you identify who you want to highlight?
Well, there's a little bit of I would say there's a lot of emotion first, because you cannot describe why you love something. You just see something and it strikes you and you love it. So that's for the, let's say, emotional part. And the less emotional part is on trying to push those who are already well organized to innovate, to create something new and to create something unique. Because if you go to international marketplaces or platforms, you want to bring something that is unique, something that has not been seen already. So we really, the way I select, I always look for uniqueness into the artists that I show. It could either be their technique or maybe the way they're working, their aesthetic, because a lot of select a lot of things about art around art is about aesthetic. So my personal aesthetic is a little bit infused into my selection, and so that's a little bit. I would say the two aspects. So one aspect is very emotional, and I cannot really put it into words, and the other aspect is more about like how the creative was organized. If he has a proper place to work, how authentic and exceptional or unique he is, and also beyond that, is he willing to grow, and what is the growing margin that he has, if he's very open-minded, and if it's easy, just when we're discussing to work on a project, if he's very collaborative, and if it's easy just to be in a conversation on working together. So those are the elements. But when it comes to the brand is a little bit different, especially if they're manufacturing or if they're creating an actual product. So a lot of brands that you will find on our platform, if for example, are those who are working on the continent. I mean, from design, from manufacturing. Maybe you have maybe 20% which are like maybe based here in Europe or in US, but they are producing on the continent, because the reason why we exist, our main mission is to help the continent produce more and export more. It's not like we are less interested in designer who may be manufacturing in China or Turkey. We are really interested in designer and creative who are on the continent and creating value on the continent, because we really believe that that's the only one of the best way the continent can really thrive and exist on the global market, on the global scene and the global markets, is if we are creating wealth at home, and the value creation, the part is really at home. And then we are really like shifting capital. When we're selling here, we are sending back capital at home, not to a factory somewhere in China or somewhere in Turkey or where else, I don't know. So that's a little bit where maybe I would say the different lies into how process and the process of other platforms who are just like selling everything that looks like African. Doesn't matter if it's made in China or made wherever. They don't care about that. If it looks like African, then it's good enough for them. So I'm really picky on that part and saying that we don't only exist to sell African thing or black owned thing. It's not only about being black owned. It's about creating wealth on the continent for the people on the continent. So yeah, that would be what differentiates us from the others. Even if maybe the customers sometimes they don't see it, because the customers sometimes they don't read everything about a product. They just see the product, then it looks nice, so they just click and they buy. They don't see where how the material was sourced, where it was made, who they're empowering. So we really want to empower people who are based on the continent, because that's also how you alleviate poverty. Because we are always complaining that the continent, even if today the narrative has shifted, but I feel like we as African, if we really want to grow the continent, we have to invest on people on the continent, even if it's like slow production. The quantity are still very minimum. It's not like big quantities like when you go to China, but still we have to go through the process until one day we are ready to have like big industry and produce thousands and millions of items. But we have to start from the beginning. So that's why sometimes people say that we are in the luxury segment, because we're not doing a lot of pieces. We are doing very limited edition. Well, because the capacity is not that big today to produce thousands and thousands. But still, we have the creativity, and we have people who know how to do beautiful things. So we have to start from that beginning. And when we will be strong enough there, then maybe we go into doing more pieces and maybe go into industry. So that's a little bit, yeah, really how we select the brand that we bring online.
So this brings me to the question of the market size. I don't know if you have any hard numbers, but this is the UN has declared 2021 the year of the creative economy, and you're working on projects with UNESCO. What is the opportunity? What does Africa stand to gain monetarily from cultivating these creative industries, investing in artisans on the ground to produce high quality products?
Well, I think the potential on the continent, we know that it's huge, and we can say that it's huge because when you take economies like, let's say, the French economy, the segment of creative industry, and the business that is created in that area account for nearly 30% of the GDP. So if you take a country like France, or if you take even a country like US, and you analyze, let's not go into big numbers, but just take our day-to-day consumption. You see that every day you're consuming brands, you're consuming culture, you're consuming art somehow, even if you're not like a collector and you're buying art, but everything around you, from the clothes you wear, the toothpaste you use to brush your teeth, to the cell phone you use or the computer you use, it's all about brands. And all the economy is created around culture, around the way people see things, the way they interact. That's culture. And if you take that and you transfer it to the continent, and you try to see how we are existing or trying to exist on the global market, you see that today we are very present with our music. We are very present, more and more present with our cinemas. We're more and more present with our clothes, because we are infusing our singularities and uniqueness into what we are pushing out of the continent. And that's the only way we can really, first of all, exist, by developing that soft power. And behind the soft power, you can then develop the hard power, which comes with industries and big companies. We are not there yet because we are not manufacturers of machines, so if we want to be producer of clothes tomorrow, we still need to go to China to buy the machine to produce the clothes. And that's why also some part of our hard power is still very shaky, because we haven't invested enough into having the whole supply chain of our value creation on the continent. So I think that even without having hard numbers, because on the continent it's very difficult to have numbers. In fashion, for instance, the number that's coming all the time is $31 billion market size. But I think that's not even a real number, because that's the number based on the real economy. But you have the gray economy, the economy of those women who do not have companies, but they're just working in the market, but still they're selling. You have economy of the artisan who hasn't registered his business, but still he's selling his product. So I think the potential is enormous, but we haven't even put a number on the potential yet. But the way I am very attracted to that part of the economy, because I believe that that's also the way we can materialize our identity on the continent and outside. Because when today I go to some countries on the continent, even my home country, Cameroon, and I see that 95% of what we are consuming is international culture. From the clothes, sometimes from the clothes we wear to the car we drive, it comes from outside. And that's why I think we really have to pay more attention and invest more into building her identity. Because as much as we will invest money in building her identity, in knowing who we are as African, and creating product in which those elements are infused, the more African will be consuming also locally. And they will be consuming and producing and exporting what they are, because people will be asking for that. You see, like today, if you go anywhere in the world, you will hear a little bit of Afrobeat. You will see a little bit of clothes inspired by Africa heritage. I mean, if you look at all the latest show, I was watching Louis Vuitton show last time. You know that the head of creativity, the creative director, is originally from Ghana. So he used the kente into the collection. So even I mean, from the mass market to luxury, everything today has a little bit of African heritage, either Black American or African. But you have a little bit of African pop culture within all the areas you can go into today. So I really think that that's a big opportunity for us, and it's good. Or I don't know what is going to change actually or concretely to have, you know, 2021 as the year of creative industries. But I know that for fact, by investing more energy and more money and more time into the creative industry on the continent, we will be building the wealth of tomorrow for Africans. So that's why I'm into that business, because I think that if tomorrow when I go to Cameroon, even if it's only 50% of the local consumption is locally made, then we're creating value locally, because what we're consuming at the end of the day, the money stays at home. It doesn't go out, you know.
So what I want to get a bit more detailed as far as, you know, the strategies for cultivating the creative economy and investing in people and growing, you know, the opportunities in this part of Africa's economy. So let's say you're given a blank check, you know, $10 million or whatever amount you want to really go in and solve this issue. You're already doing a lot that is, you know, amplifying the work of artists. What would you do with a blank check to really like complete the work of the value chain?
Okay, if I had a blank check today, the first thing I would do, I will go to maybe Cameroon or Ghana or Senegal. I will buy a piece of land. I will equip that piece of land with a lot of machine, and I will hire young craft people to come work there and you know, I don't know how you say it in English, it's like perfection, like
okay, refine
their talents to do better, to do more precisely, and also so what I would do is I create what is called commonly a fab lab. So it's like a laboratory of fabrication. So there we will experiment new techniques. We will go more in depth into the techniques that are already acquired on the continent, and we will see how we can build incrementally production of quantities, starting to see how we perform by just producing 20 items, then 40, then 50, then 100. So I would try to disseminate on the continent different fab labs with different skills. Let's say when you go to West Africa, we're really good on weaving. Then I will have a fab lab dedicated only to weaving, developing the best fabric, and being also innovative, not only tapping into the heritage and doing what her ancestors did, but tapping into that to create new way of doing things. I would go, let's say, to South Africa and work with people who are doing the beading, the embellishment on. They can do the embellishment on fabric. They can do the embellishment on so many different things. I would go to other places where you have a lot of wood. Let's say in Central Africa, from Cameroon to Congo, there's a lot of wood today that's being like exported raw. So they cut the wood in the forest and they just export it. They don't transform it into paper. They don't transform it into furniture. They just export it. And we have the best wood in the world. If you look at the continent today, they think that Amazonia is the heart of the world, but actually it's Congo. Is all that area of the heart of the continent, which is the heart of the world, you know. So trying to preserve the forest and only cutting what we need and using it locally, transform it into something we can consume locally. So if I was giving a blank check, yeah, I think I would build like different factories and fab labs on the continent, each of them specialized in something, and also organize a route for skills transfer. So us on the continent we can, elevate what we know as hard skills. We can also teach better our younger generation to go into this industry, because when you even look at fashion, we don't have that many fashion schools. We don't have design schools. We have few art schools, but they're not very specialized. You don't have a school dedicated to ceramics. You don't have a school dedicated to only wood. You don't have a school dedicated to only metal. So all these different skills and different talent that can be developed into the creative industry, they are not taught at school. So empirically, we're just doing it because her ancestor did it, and because it was passed on from generation to generation, but we didn't learn that at school. So now, bringing design as a course, as something you can learn at school. You can go to school to learn design. That's something we don't do today on the continent. We don't go. I mean, her parents, they send you to school to become a doctor, or to, but they don't send you to school to become a designer. So now I would say it's a little bit evolving, but we're still not there yet. So we have to invest a little bit more into that.
So who is the market? So let's say you build these fab labs all over the continent. Who would you export to, or who would you sell to, and how does that compare maybe to who the market is now? Would it be the same market?
The world, I mean, from us locally, we are the market to international. Because when you go on international platforms, if you look only into, let me turn the light on because I see like
that's right. Even me, I might have to turn my light on. I'm like,
yeah, it's better. Yeah, so when you go to international markets, you see production from everywhere. If you take only the fashion segment, you will see that even there's a lot of brands from Europe. Some of them are producing in Europe. Most of them are producing in China, in Turkey, a little bit in the North Africa. But most of the clothes are not produced uh, um, on the continent. I mean, let's say North Africa is the continent. But if you take the Center Africa or West Africa, most things are not produced there. But we consume things that are coming from China, from Turkey, from France, from Italy, from the United States. So if we become producers, we will be the first people to consume because we need that for her day to day. And after that, we can bring her specialities internationally, because the way we do things is not the same way people do things in France or in Italy or in the United States. But when you go to the market and you see all those brands, you buy one because you feel more attracted to either by the aesthetic or the design or the storytelling. So that's why I'm saying that by owning her identity, by investing into knowing more who we are and infusing that into what we do, we create something unique that the rest of the world will want. So the market is global. You should take every segment from her cinema to her music. The market is global, and you can already see that. I don't know if you noticed it during the pandemic, the TikTok challenges. So many TikTok challenges were with African music. And I was seeing people from India, from China, from wherever dancing to African music. And I'm just like, we have succeeded to export our music, so many Afrobeat out there. And I'm like, that's how big the market is. The market is not only local, the market is international. So that's why when we have a brand today, that brand has to think international, even if they're only operating locally. They have to acknowledge that with Instagram, somebody can just click on Instagram and see their page. That person can be in Tokyo or can be in California. That person would be connected to their brand. And today, what is it to ship something from Accra to Tokyo? It takes maybe 5 days and it's there. So the market is international. So the opportunity is tremendous. Now it's high capacity. Are we able to produce enough to respond to the demand?
Hmm.
And even if we are not able yet to produce enough, the small quantities that we are producing, is it bringing the wealth into our homes, or is it like just like sending the wealth outside? So so yeah, I think that it is very important for us to acknowledge how global the market is, and to know that we are part of that global market, and it's up to us to bring something different and something unique that is only possible through us.
Hmm. Very powerful. You were saying earlier the importance of knowing our identity and infusing our identity into what we create, so that makes it so unique that everybody wants it. And I fully agree with you that, Black art, we had this panel discussion at Norfest 2020 about the treasury of Black art,
Mhm.
and the value of Black art globally, and how, irresistible our art is to everybody. So in terms of identity, you said you're from Cameroon. And you've lived in France now for how many years?
Almost 18.
Almost 18 years.
Yeah.
So I want you to talk a bit about your journey coming to France. How did you make the decision that I'm going to start a gallery? How did we come to this chapter?
Well, basically, when I came to France, was to go to school. To go to college. And when I went to college, I studied business. And after studying business, I mean, I had a daytime to go to school, and I had my weekends to do my own things, to go to galleries, go to shops, go to stores, see things, see Paris, see a little bit what I was surrounded by. And that's a little bit where my passion for art and creativity in general started. Because if you live in Paris, or if you're just even traveling to Paris, there's so much creativity everywhere. I mean, in the street, you're bombarded by brands, by creative people. You know, it's either art, it's branding, it's everything. You're just surrounded by singularities. You see different things around you, and also you live in a very cosmopolitan environment. You have people coming from India, from China, from Russia, from everywhere, and you are coming from Africa. And so I studied business, and after I studied business, I was very passionate by century brands, by all the big names that you know. I was interested to know more about how they became big brands, how they started, and how they build their legacy. So I studied my last year. I did a master in luxury. So my master major was luxury management. So I studied all the brands, and I studied a little bit how the brands operate today. And after that, I started working for a big Swiss corporation. They specialize in watchmaking. They're number one worldwide in watchmaking. So they do the whole process from designing the watch that you have that you wear on your wrist, to the all the component that you find into the watches. So they are really on the whole supply chain. So when I worked in the group, I was working on the portfolio of brand was like very very exciting. There was like 30 brands, from the ultra luxury brand to the very accessible and mass market brands. And
What were
just
some of the brands that you worked with at that time?
I mean, few of them that you might know. We had like Chopin, Chaumet, Dior. At the time, we had Tiffany and Co. Um, Swatch, that everybody knows. Which other ones like Hamilton, Calvin Klein watches. Um, all those watch brand that Swiss made. That I think if you look around you, you will always find somebody who's wearing one of those brands. So my goal was to just like within the network of stores, guarantee that they have novelty. I was like trade marketing manager, so I was like in charge of like up to 40 point of sale in Europe. And my job was to make sure they have the right product on time, and they have the right advertisement campaign, and the right merchandise to, to push the product to customers. So when I was working within the group, I just came to the realization that us as African, we do not exist in those, in those places,
Mm.
places of brands, the places of know-how, excellence, craftsmanship. I felt like I didn't see any brand from home who could be at that level, or who was doing something for the last, let's say, 100 years, because those are century brands. Some of them are 200 years,
Mhm.
and it just struck me like, why we have no brands
At
in
this
anything,
level.
in anything. Because at the time, I think that was 10 years ago, we didn't have fashion. We had few fashion brands, but they were not like globally known like today. We didn't have brands in, let's say, even in music, we didn't have any brand. We didn't exist. It was just like, you live in this cosmopolitan city. You have
Mhm.
brands from the US, from France, from Italy, even from China. And you, as African, they tell you that you are the creator of mankind. So that
Mhm.
civilization started there. And there's nothing. It's just, for me, it was like, how do we exist in this world?
Mhm.
How do her culture, how do her identity exist? Because through all those different brands, their culture exists, their identity exists. Sometimes it's somebody's name. When you take Yves Saint Laurent, it's somebody's name, it's his vision, and it's his way of thinking. So when you take the continent, you're like, who is there? Of
Mhm.
course, you have soccer players.
Who is our Yves Saint Laurent now? Are there any brands that you've worked with from the continent that you would compare to these brands that we're talking about?
No, there's not that. We don't have any brand that I can compare to, because
Then
all
even
of
if
those
they may not
brands,
be 100, they may not be a century brand, but those who are operating or who are
I
exporting.
think there are few brands on the continent now who have the potential to become the
Okay.
name of tomorrow, but they still have a lot to put into their processes. Because sometimes people think that a brand is just a name, but it's not just a name. It's a process. It's a process, and it's the way of, processing your creativity in house, and pushing it toward the customer, creating a story, creating a memory, creating a legacy, and those things takes years. So that's why I would say that today I will not compare any African brand to any international brands, because we haven't gone through that process yet. But there's a lot of brands on the continent who have the potential to become tomorrow's big names. And there are already few of them who can compete in terms of creativity at the same level as all those big houses, but they still don't have the process of big houses. I don't see anyone on the continent today who has the process of a big house, because we only see the shiny, the glossy, the beautiful part of it. But when you go backstage, it's ugly, and it's a lot of money, and it's a lot of commitment, a lot of
Mhm.
investment in time. It's a lot of passionate people who have been dedicated for centuries, and it's families. It's a it's a lot, and it doesn't happen overnight. You build that to become. So today, if you take the continent, only few of her brand can say that they're making 10 million per year. But 10 million, we are not even speaking, because most of the brand that I'm telling you internationally, they're speaking in billions, and
Mhm.
they're creating wealth around the world because they have network around the world to sell their products. They're not only based in France. Even if they're made in France for some of them, they're based everywhere. It means when they are sleeping in France, they're making money in Asia. I
Mhm.
don't know much brand. I don't know many brand on the continent today who are able to say the same. I mean, there are few of them who are going there.
Who are the brands that have that potential?
Like one of the brands that I really saw them grow and invest in having the process behind is Laduma, Makosa from South Africa. So what they do, the whole process is locally made. I mean, from the thread to the garment is made in South Africa. So that's how strong the process is. So that's why I say they have the potential to remain there. I mean, whatever happens, they will still be there because they have built something unique. Even the signature, the aesthetic signature is unique. The process is unique. Everything is unique, and it's not something that you can copy paste. And that's why I see them really being there again in 20 years. Um, they few brands. You also have Tebi Magugu, who won the LVMH prize a few years ago. You have a brand in Nigeria like Lisa Folawiyo because her work is very unique. You have Deola Sego in Nigeria as well. She created something called the Komole. She used it to do all the traditional wedding dresses for Nigerians. Those are unique things that actually a brand like Deola Sego is 25 years old. So she has the potential to go beyond 25 years because she's been investing into the process. But still, when she's sleeping Lagos, I'm not sure she's selling pieces in Atlanta or selling pieces in Tokyo. So that's all the steps she has to put into becoming a big name, a big house tomorrow. And for me, being an African brand doesn't mean you're only designing for Africans. No, it means you're not your brand with African legacy. Even saying African doesn't mean a thing. You can be a Nigerian brand, a brand made in Nigeria, but you are international brand because you're designing for people everywhere in the world. And somebody maybe getting married and in in Tokyo is going to order from you because they really love what you're doing. So that's why I'm saying like we have the potential, but we are not there yet. We still have a lot of our energy to invest into that area. So that's a little bit how I came to the gallery because I was passionate about all the Century brands, the process behind the Century brand, and when you look at big houses, it's a fusion of business acumen, creativity, innovation, and art. So that's a little bit how I fell into this area of mixing branding with creativity with art because that's how you create uniqueness.
Were
Because
you creative? Were you creative as a child?
sorry,
Were you creative? Were you creative as a child? What were you
no,
passionate about in your
no.
childhood?
As a child, I was passionate about music.
Because you do also sing.
Yeah, from time to time for personal pleasure. Well, at some point, I sometimes dream of becoming a singer. But when I started doing it with professional, I saw the whole work behind it. I was like, it's not fun. I just want to be a singer for fun, not for work. It was too much pressure. Too much pressure, a lot of work. I mean, we should respect the artist because we look out from outside, we think it's easy. But performing the same song on stage 1,000 times, it's not easy. So no. I think my creative part today, I'm like tapping into it to create like innovative way of doing business because I'm really passionate about business. I really believe business is something that can transform lives, and that's why my creativity is more invested into creative way of doing business, if I can say, or doing business in creative spaces. um yeah, that's it. Yeah.
So have you always had that interest and passion? Do you think that that's something that preceded even coming to school? I mean, obviously you chose to study business, so we can talk about that decision a bit. How did you come to that decision that you were going to study, business, that you were going to work in the business world?
Well, I just realized that everything around us is business. I don't see anything happening without not being a business transaction. Take any segment. there's money involved. So the way I came around it is like, I remember when I was at home in Cameroon, I was learning economy for the first time.
In high school.
Yeah.
Okay.
And at school, they talked about the triad, the triangular trade.
Okay.
And I was shocked because they said the trade is triangular. So it's like Europe, Asia. So it was like Europe, Asia, and America. And I was like, and where is Africa? Where is Africa? I mean, like, we don't just consume. But actually we were not on that map, And I remember my teacher at that time, he drew the triangle and he pinpoint. And after he put an arrow from Africa and pushing the arrow from Africa to Europe and saying that Europe is sourcing raw material from us and then transforming the raw material into products and then selling the product worldwide. Same for Asia and same for America. But us, we were not in the trade because we were not trading finished goods. We were trading raw materials. We were being exploited raw materials at the time. So that's why I think if you took the world trade, you wouldn't see the massive wealth coming from Africa because the value of our raw material, was undervalued. It was not market value. It was just like raw value from when you pick it from the ground. And learning after, a lot of company extracting raw materials on the continent are not Africans. So that's why we did not appear on the trade map. And I was shocked. And I was like, how come we're not trading? I was really shocked. And from that time, I said that my job will be working at the Tariff and Trade Bureau, to control what enter the country and what go out of the country, because we have to be part of, because the trade happening. So we cannot say that there's no trade, And after I just evolved to business because then I understand the dynamic of conglomerate companies and why, you could be a company based in California, but also have subsidiaries in everywhere in the world, and just being operating globally. And I became very passionate about that because it seemed more powerful for me than politics. It seemed more powerful for me than, everything else, because that's how the world goes round. It's with trade, people trading things and putting money value on it, So yeah, that's how I came to business. And after I realized, even in the creative space that I'm speaking, you create value from who you are, from what you do, and how unique you are, and how specialized you are. You remember Ricardo theory. You have to develop wealth in your specialty. Then you can trade that specialty with other people who are specialized in something else in the world. And that's how you create the wealth for yourself and your country. So that's a little bit how I came to that area. And when I realized that brands and music and cinema was part of business, I was just like, wow, this is amazing. You are in entertainment business, still you have the business etiquette at the hand. So I really believe business can transform people's lives, when you create something other people want, because we're living on a planet where we are 7 billion. So if you're able to create one thing that people want, and then 2 people, and then 3 people, and then maybe 1 billion people will want it. And that's how you can create value for yourself and create value for other people around you. So I think it's very powerful to empower communities, and to also, if you look at the more, I would say, the philosophic part of business, which is like pushing you to become a better version of yourself and doing more than what you think you can do. I think, yeah, it's a discipline that's very exciting on so many aspects.
So you say you've been in France for 18 years. Did this high school experience happen in France or in
No, in Cameroon.
Okay.
It was in Cameroon. And when I came to France, I wanted to study how French people do business or trade. It was mostly trade, But trade today is business. Like everybody who is in trade, import, export is in some business, Now they choose a segment of business that they're part of. But yeah, I was very passionate about knowing how people interact, on a daily basis. And it's always money involved.
How,
So you cannot be part of this without knowing how it functions, I think.
what part of Cameroon are you from?
I'm from the west, the Bamileke tribe in Cameroon.
What was it like for you? What was your childhood like? And
My childhood was very, I would say, peaceful, and I grew up. My family, I have 8 siblings, so I'm the youngest. And growing up, I grew up with my brothers and sisters. And growing up, we had so many crazy dreams. And when I look at her, at me today, I'm also like, a lot of her dreams were like, about traveling, doing crazy things. I remember when I was young, I wanted to become Zena. I don't know if you know that TV show, Zena. She's a warrior.
oh, okay. Princess Warrior, Xena Princess
Yeah, yeah, I
Warrior.
wanted to be her. I wanted to be like her, a fighter and a warrior. I think in a sense I'm a fighter and a warrior today.
Were you rambunctious as a kid then? If you wanted to be a fighter,
Sorry?
I said, were you rambunctious as a kid? Did you want to be? Were you pretty like rambunctious? Just meaning that you like to maybe get into fights, or you a little bit physical?
Actually, no. It was like what I liked was like she was very assertive.
Okay.
She was able to get people to do. She was a leader and a very assertive leader. She was able to just like get people to do things and get people to listen to her and to follow her. And that was the part that I liked about her. So I was like, when I grew up, I really want to be also somebody who has a voice and who can just like lead people to the truth about themselves, about their community, and just like fight to exist in their space, or fight for the territory, or fight for the identity. At the time, I didn't know all this thing, but now I realize that maybe that's why I was attracted to her, because she was a strong woman. She was very she was very also eloquent. So she could fight, but at the same time, she could convince people to do things and to follow her. So so yeah.
So would you say that you had a lot of strong women in your family? Your philosophy about change, is very innate. You're very passionate about changing and fighting for what is right. And I'm curious if that's something that was, a seed that was planted by your parents. With
Yeah,
your
yeah,
husband.
mom the first. I mean, I do respect her so much. How come she came to have 9 children? I mean, that's a daily stressing job, and also I think I because I grew up, because I have more brothers than sisters. I grew up in an environment of strength. I didn't grow up, playing to Barbies and stuff like this. No, I was playing soccer with my brothers. So, so yeah, maybe just naturally, I was like physically strong because I was always surrounded by my brothers. So nobody could just like trying to fight me, because I seemed strong, even if I wouldn't go into a fight for nothing in the world, because I don't like fighting physically. But yeah, being all like around them, when you grow up also with brothers, they're more harsh, they're more like they will push you, so you have to know how to defend yourself. So if you're too like, well, nothing's gonna happen for you, because even your plate, they're gonna eat your food because they eat faster. So so you have to know how to defend yourself. And I remember for my brothers, they will be always the fastest to eat, and I would be like the slowest, and they will eat my food. And I remember when I was young, I don't know for you, but we always eat the meat last. And I would never eat my meat, because they would eat my meat for me. So at some point, then you just become wiser. You just like, okay, Now I'm going to do it differently because I know that they're always fighting all this kind of thing. So
Okay.
I don't know if I think it did contribute to my character, uh, the way I became, growing up around just boys and being in boys' environment. Because my sister, they're older than me. They're way older than me, so I didn't really grow up around them. I mostly grew up with my brothers. So yeah, yeah.
So I'm gonna ask you like our fire round questions. We haven't talked about what Black genius means to you, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on what Black genius means to you.
For me, black genius mean owning yourself,
Mm.
owning your space, and being a catalyst of of uh, of wealth, of creativity, of positivity, and also being an example of what it means to be black beyond being a person, what it means to because I today, especially with everything's happening, sometimes it's not easy to actually know what it means to be black. Even for me, I never really asked myself that question.
Mm.
Growing up in Cameroon or growing up in a family that I was naturally accepted. But I think today it has more significance, like being anchored into your identity, being your true self without faking it or trying to pretend that you're somebody else, just owning who you are as an African, as a black person from African descent, and you know being your best self and not being it just for you, not in just the egocentric sense of being you, but being yourself also to give echo to our legacy, to give echo to where we are from, to give echo to what we believe in, and to allow it to have more impact around you. So yeah, that's what for me it means to be very anchored, to be very good into your feet, if I could say, being
Mm.
good with yourself and your insecurities and your qualities, and just being yourself, authentically you, and unapologetically yourself, and creating wealth for you and people around you.
That's a powerful definition. I love that. We're gonna write that in. We're gonna write that into the story. So you talked about the pandemic and how it slowed things down for you. How did 2020 as a year, how did 2020 change you?
Actually, I don't know if should say this, that I should be thankful for 2020, but I'm very thankful for 2020 because it helped me and people around me mostly to understand that I was not crazy to become an entrepreneur. Because for
Mm.
African families, it's just like becoming an entrepreneur. Maybe today it's becoming more and more sexy, but a few years when I started and I left my job because I was very well paid, my social status was, my parents were very happy with me and my position in life. And then I just say, I'm quitting all that to become an entrepreneur because I believe we should do more for the continent, and there's more to be done for the
Mm.
continent to thrive in these international spaces. And nobody really understood what I meant, and people didn't understand why I would live such a comfortable life to go struggle starting a business from scratch, and I always knew that I had to, because it's our
Mm.
responsibility to do things. We shouldn't just sit there and wait for people to make things better. If we can, we should. And I think 2020 showed people that what really matters is what we do. It's
Mm.
not what we dream of or what we go in the street and shout. The difference we can make is in our actions. If we, as African, as Black people, want to be respected, we have to go into the action of building things that are going to make people respect us. We cannot just go out and
Mm.
demand respect. We have to impose respect. And the only way to impose respect is by doing things, and being in those, owning those spaces that we are not owning. There's so many spaces out there that we are not owning. We're just there like that, consuming. We have to be creating. We have to be building companies, building things, building wealth. So, because I think that a lot of people came to understand in 2020 that what really matters is what you do, because you can get fired anytime,
Mhm.
and what are your values, and what do you believe in, because a pandemic can just happen and everything you learn just vanish.
Mm.
So what do you hold, and how do you go forward? So 2020 didn't really shake me, because I know that what I'm trying to build will take years.
Mm.
So even if uh, it take a downturn now because of the global economy and everything, it still has potential to grow, because that's the only way to go. And
Mm.
if I take the seven last year that I've been an entrepreneur, I see growth. I see that I went from a blank paper with my pen to a company that is nearly making millions now. So there's only room for growth, and so that's why I haven't been shaken to say, oh, what am I going to do with my life now that the pandemic, to be anxious, not sleeping at night, that maybe I'm going to lose my job and all those things. No, I'm just like, I should do more, because only by doing more I'm going to be able to still be here in 10 years. And no companies were built in 10 years. I mean, most of the companies you see today, they started in the 70s.
1700.
No, in the
Oh,
70s.
the 70s. Okay.
70s. I mean, like if you take top company like Apple, or maybe Nike,
Mm.
they started in I think Nike was 76, 1976. So
Mm.
those brands are very, very old brands. I mean, and if you remember, did you know them 20 years ago? Maybe not. So there's still room to grow. There's only room to grow. But to be able to be in a position of growth, you have to know why you're doing things. You shouldn't just be doing things because you want to earn a living. That's not the only reason you should be doing things, because that living you're earning, you're just building somebody's dream, and you're building
Mm.
that person company, or you're building that country's wealth, or you're building that region wealth. What are you doing for your community, for yourself? And that's why even everything happening with George Floyd, I was just like, we have to own our spaces, because it's not normal that in 2020 people still lack respect to black people this much. It's just like we haven't been maybe owning our spaces enough, and just being there so people don't question why we are there. They just see and accept it.
So
So
you mentioned George Floyd, and I want to ask a bit about, because I've read some stuff recently about France and how there seems to be a slow awakening, a slow boiling of tensions around race. How did you experience the racial reckoning of 2020 when you look at stories like what comes out of the U.S. Black American experience as a francophone African woman living in France? How do you kind of experience these phenomena, and then even thinking about the NSARS movement in Nigeria?
well, in France, the awakening is very slow. People always try to erase race, to think that no, we're all French, or you know but there's so many racist people who always think color first before thinking nationality. Like being French is not about being white. It's about being so many things, but only white, because there's so many people here who came from everywhere. So personally, the way I experience, I would say I never had a direct confrontation of racism in my daily life, even if when I had my gallery, because my gallery was on High Street in a very chic neighborhood. And sometimes when people came in, they would ask me where the manager is, because I couldn't be the manager of that place. I could only be a salesperson, or maybe somebody working there. But it never it never took me by the guts. I don't really care about that. I'm like, if you consider me as maybe the cleaning lady whatsoever, I'm making the money here, or I'm paying the bills. I own this space, so I don't care whatever you treat me, as
Mm.
much I'm doing my thing. So personally, I would say that I've never been directly confronted, but generally speaking, there are two waves of people, a two wave of black people in France. You have the wave of the people who were born here, like black who were born here, and maybe they were not given opportunities and chances to do things at a certain level. And you have other ones like me who were born on the continent, who were maybe in middle class and have families and parents had the means to send us to school, to send us to college, to top college, and to good, very good school. I would say that me, where I went to school, I maybe was maybe with the elites, the French elite. So they were a little bit more educated, more open minded than maybe some French people who never travel. So I've always been in that environment. Even when I got my job in the top luxury company, people were like, "How you, as a black person, got the job?" I'm like, because I get the job done. That's the only reason they hired me. It wasn't because of my color or whatsoever. It's because I could do the job. So personally, I always put myself in the position on being needed,
Mm.
not on needing something. But I think not everybody has the capacity to be in that position or to have the mindset of that position. I see, because yeah, the racism exists. Uh, when you want to rent an apartment, they will say no, they don't rent to black people. But if you own your apartment, you will never have that problem because you're not demanding anything. You bought with your money cash. Nobody said no, you know. So I think the way I see it here, you still have like a black elite, which is not really concerned by the day to day. Even if sometimes they will have the kind of racism, you go to a restaurant, they don't want to treat you because they think that you are black, so they don't want to respond to you because they don't know that you can pay or you can own the restaurant.
Mm.
And then you have the other way, which is like they want more opportunities, they want more chances, they want, you know, they want people to give them jobs because they're looking for jobs. And usually, I always say, even to other people, other black people in France, like we shouldn't put ourselves into the position of demanding anything. We should put ourselves in the position of being wanted because of the money we are investing, the wealth we are creating, and um, and the potential we are bringing to France, because we are actually bringing a lot of potential to France as well. Because only having my company base here, I'm paying I'm paying my bills here. So France has to need me. It's not me to put myself in the position of needing France or waiting for France to do something for me. It's me bringing to France the opportunity to to say that, okay, the company that is like creating wealth on the continent today in the creative sector is based in France. That's something they should want.
Mhm, mhm,
So I think the way I experience racism, I would say that maybe I've like I'm like focused on something else. So
mhm,
even when people are racist about me, I don't see it because I don't care, I would say.
mhm,
But generally, the environment is very toxic because sometimes when I listen to news and I listen to what people are saying, and I'm like, just I don't know in which world you're living, people.
mhm,
Travel a little bit. That's always what I say. Take a ticket, go to Africa, and you will see that you will want to live in Africa. You will not say that African are trying to come here because this and that and that. And if people understood more the dynamic of building wealth, and how some French company are building wealth on the back of a lot of Africans. They will not be daring to open their mouth and saying things, but they don't know because they are not educated. They don't understand the dynamic of trading, how companies are trading in Africa today. So they just say random things because they feel threatened in their day to day, because they think that that job that they want maybe is a black person that's going to take it.
mhm,
So but I think the awakening have been only happened because it happened mainstream in the United States. Otherwise, here we still live in a bubble. Like, no, it doesn't exist here. We don't have that problem. But there are few people here in France that are carrying that torch and trying to say no to racism, more to more diversity in different spaces. You probably heard about Assa Traore. She's fighting for her brother because her brother died almost as George Floyd died. The same thing. He was arrested, and few days after he died because I think they made high pressure on his lungs and he couldn't breathe normally. So that's happening here too. But it's not being addressed the same way because I think even in numbers we are lesser, and there are not that many black people in show business, if I can say, or in top business. So our voices are still very, low, um,
Mm.
not as high as in the US, because in US you have the Oprah, you have big names they can shout and people can listen to. Here is still very, very shy, if I can say. But
Mm.
I think that by building companies with wealth and by building a basis that's very strong, also based on wealth, her power also going to come out of that. Because
Mm.
if we are not listened to, then we can go somewhere else with her wealth. So I don't know. I don't know.
You mentioned earlier French companies. I know we're over. We're gonna wrap up. I want to make sure to touch on this because you mentioned earlier French companies making money off of the backs of Africa and Africans. And there's so many things that we could talk about in that realm. But I think it would be great if you could educate our listeners and our viewers about the relationship, between some of these French companies and and francophone countries.
Well, it's delicate, but the few French companies that are only operating in Africa. If you take French Francophone Africa, you take, for instance, the entertainment, you take the TV segment, for instance. One of the biggest TV channel that is like broadcasted all over the Francophone area is owned by a French company.
Mhm.
So that's one example. One of the biggest car dealer in the Francophone space is a French company. Most of the retail store that are opening on the continent today, especially the French part of the continent, is French owned. There's so many other examples I can go through. Like there's so many other examples. So when you see that there's a little bit of retail happening in Senegal, in Cote d'Ivoire, in Cameroon, those are all French companies. So it's all French capital. So let's take the telecommunication, for example, the cell phone. Um, in the francophone spaces, one of the biggest companies is French owned. You have like MTN, which is from South Africa, competing, but the top number one is French owned. So it means in francophone areas, the day to day spending goes into French pockets. And
Mm.
when I say that, people hate me. They don't like when I say that because they say, yeah, but they're creating job in Cameroon, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, yeah, sure. Are they paying taxes as they should be paying taxes? No, they are
Mm.
not, because they're corrupting our government to pay less taxes. Are they investing in training people? Are they building schools? Or is the government taking money out of their pocket to build schools? No, the government is not. That's why you see that people go to university, and after they come to the job market, and they cannot do anything because what they learn at the university was not
Yes.
it's not usable in the normal life.
Mm.
And when I say that, people don't like it, and man, I'm like, they're not building any wealth from the continent. They're stealing from Africans' pockets. They're stealing from your grandmother, because if they were not doing that, they would be like local companies doing that. And if there's a local company doing that, then that local company can then hire more people locally and create more wealth locally. But at
Mm.
the end of the day, the profit that they're making, they're not keeping it there. They're exporting the profit. So yeah, it's so deeply rooted that I don't know how we will undo what has been done. So
Mm.
that's, for me, I call it like neo capitalism and colonialism, because people see the growth. They say, "Oh yeah, have you seen the growth rate of of Ivory Coast is close to 8%. And I'm like, yeah, sure. But where does the capital invested to grow that 8% is coming from? So
Mm,
where do you think the profit will go? So
mm,
that's why we're having like big we're making business, sure, like you look at the GDP of the country, it's kind of, yeah, higher than the year before. You have like 8% growth rate, but it's not building wealth. You see
we're
road
actually
is
kind of really.
big, hospital, there's no hospital. You go to a country like Cameroon and they tell you that they only have like 50 ventilators for COVID,
Mm,
and you're like, guys, you're 24 million people. So even just like if one tenth of your population is sick, you only have 50 ventilators.
mm,
So where is the growth rate going if it's not building hospital and building schools
mm,
and building roads?
mm,
Where is it going? So I don't. So for me, it's just like people say sometimes that Africa is rising, but me, when I look at Francophone Africa, I'm like, I don't know how we're rising, but I feel like some people's pockets are rising very, very high, but it's not invested in the right things. People are not trained. We don't have skills. We don't have like the good skills, the skill that we need, because it's not only about going to school to learn things. It's about going to learn something that you can apply in normal life and real life and
that's
create something
really
that's
wow.
useful.
Mm,
So yeah, the relationship is still very weird. So um, from where I stand, I'm trying to balance that. And I remember a few years ago, we were invited by the French president to have a discussion because he considered that uh, we are among the few, like the happy few who can make a difference into the relationship with the continent. And so he was asking us to make a difference in the way we do business, in the way we trade with France. But at the same time, he was almost asking us to protect France interest in Africa and protect African interest in France. And I'm like, it's not my role to protect French interest in Africa. My role is to make sure in this deal, African knows exactly what they're signing for.
mm,
So, but it's a very delicate situation. But I think it's very important also to have the diaspora being the bridge and building the bridge where negotiation is possible, where discussion is possible, where also education and understanding of what we are doing is possible. Because sometimes when you go at home and you put a French white business person in front of somebody else on the continent or in Cameroon, they're just like frightened to negotiate because there's still this complex of inferiority, you know. They feel like they cannot negotiate with a white person. Then I'm like, this is so wrong. But only maybe somebody from the diaspora who's been living here, maybe I hire French white people to work for me and they work under me and I was paying them to do what they're doing. So I would never have that problem and saying that you are fired or your deal is not good enough or come with a better deal because I know that I'm fighting for the interest of our people, you know. But there's so many people at home who don't have that position because the relationship is still rigged somehow, I think. So I think that the balance, before we say that we're in a win-win situation, we have to restore some kind of balance because I think the balance of power is too much still with the French people on African people trying to do business with the rest of the world. So it's more difficult to be fair and to be square, you know. So I hope it changes, but it's evolving. It is evolving, but too slowly, too
too
slowly.
slowly. And
Yeah.
when you think too slowly, I think about the conflict in southern Cameroon and how some of these, delicate matters fuel conflicts in places like Cameroon and Congo, even in Nigeria now, there's so much violence. I'm just curious if you have any thoughts on what's happening in southern Cameroon, and even going into the last question, which I'll ask, what Black liberation means to you. So speak to those two.
I'm really, really saddened by what is happening in Anglophone Cameroon, and same for Nigeria with the NSA movement. Is that especially because it touches young people? Because we are so contradictory. We're always saying every day that the future of the continent is the youth. But today, the continent is governed by the elders. They represent less than 30% of the population, but they are the ones deciding for what's going to happen tomorrow. It means tomorrow they will be dead, but they're deciding today what's going to happen tomorrow. And I'm like, this is so wrong. But it's also happening because our democratic system is not functioning properly. Maybe Nigeria is a little bit different because you have had change of government, but us in Cameroon is so wrong. We've had the same. I'm like, I'm gonna be 36 this year, and before I was born, we had the same president we still have today. It, I don't think it's even thinkable. But how do you expect innovation? How do you expect youth in the workforce? Because even the workforce is old. I mean, when you take companies, people who are deciding in companies, most of the companies, or even the government, they are more than 60. So how can they accurately know what is happening in today's world? How can somebody who is 60 know what a person who has 25 years old needs and wants today in her today life? So it really saddens me because in everything I do, I really try to include the young people. I mean, I am a young person, so people around me, people I operate and work with on a daily basis, most of them are less than 40 years old, and I'm always telling them they have to, create an environment where they can hire or teach younger people than them to be able to make sure that tomorrow if they are tired or they're no longer capable of doing the things they are doing today, another person will be able to do it because that's how we guarantee that her legacy will exist, that her ideology will still exist tomorrow, is by teaching it at school and making people who are younger than us able to take it where we cannot, take it anymore. If we are too tired or we maybe want to do something else, we want younger people to be able to do that. So when we are silenced by conflicts, like the NSA conflict, because even young Nigeria couldn't go to the street and say that they are discontentment. They are just silenced. And I'm like, how can they say that we are the future of the continent if they are not giving us tools to to shape the continent? Or even just showing us the direction. They're not even showing us any direction. They're just, we decide that okay, you are the president. They're just there. I am the president. They're not doing anything, not thinking about our education, not thinking about how we can interact with each other, or not thinking about even us on the local level. I'm so saddened when I look at Cameroon and I say that if I'm taking a ticket from Douala to Lagos, I have to pay like maybe 1,000 euro because they don't have cheaper flights than that. And I'm like, this is so not normal that we are not creating, they're not creating an environment for us to do things together. And they're saying that you are the youth, you are the future, you should be entrepreneurs. But how do you want us to be entrepreneurs without the power, without the light? How do you want us to be entrepreneurs without the roads? How do you want us to be entrepreneurs without the fundings? And they are buying jets for few of them who have money. They are buying jets, they're going to parties, I'm just like, this is so wrong. We're neglecting the youth of the continent and we are expecting that tomorrow we will own the continent. It's not going to be possible because why when they're not doing what they should be doing, well, international capital is coming in and doing what they should be doing. So I'm really saddened by that, and I don't know how we should. I think protesting is good, even if when we're trying to protest we are silenced. But still, we should show our discontentment. We should go out there and say that we're not happy. Or you, hopefully today with social media, we can reach out to media outside of the continent. Even if sometime in some country they cut the internet, they cut the power, so you're not even able to communicate. But still, I think we have to remain resilient and know that sometimes we are fighting with people who are inside our houses because we have to convince our uncle that, hey, uncle, you've been there too long. Leave it. Hire younger people, a person. Give that job to that younger person. Sometimes it's even her uncles in her own families that we're not trying. It's hard to convince them to just let go and leave young people do their thing. So So I don't know how it's gonna evolve, but I think we younger people we have to be more connected, more organized together to maybe bring local solution because I've seen even in Cameroon with everything that happened with Anglophone part of the Cameroon, there's a lot of young people who are bringing local solution in the cities, who are trying to create alternative way of schooling the youngers who are not going to school because some school were burned, you know. So they're finding local solution without the government, to trying to create another reality for these younger people than us. So I think yeah, we should be more connected, more organized, trying to get organized, um, and do what we can do to prepare for when these old people leave us the room. But we have to keep pushing and keep trying. We shouldn't give up. If it's protesting, we should protest. I know, yeah, some of us will die protesting, but that's also how the change happened. Unfortunately, I think.
So that brings me to that last question of Black liberation. What does Black liberation mean to you as we close?
I think it's a little bit close to a Black genius. You we have to, as Black people, we have to liberate ourselves from what the others think of us. What they think of us is their problem. We should have our own agenda about our communities, about what we want to do, where we want to go, and what we want to build for the generation who's going to be coming after us. So being liberated for me is owning her space. Really, like for me, that's the definition of being free. Is being able to be yourself, unapologetic, unapologetically, and not trying to fit into one box or fit into another box. So that's why the people that I very inspired by is the younger generation of Black people because they're not threatened by anything, you know. So Black liberation is that we should own our spaces. We shouldn't demand anything. We should just take it. And maybe sometimes it's not about taking it by force. It's about taking it by rules. Because, you know, we can be infiltrated in some area and just take it easily. The only thing I should say is that we should get organized, we should strategize before going to the street and complain. We should be also in the back room, strategizing, getting organized, building wealth, building power, and getting together, acknowledging that we exist, that the strength that we're looking, maybe the funding that we're looking, it's in somebody's pocket who has the same age as us, and we should know that person. Sometimes I think that, and that's why I think sometimes we are failing, is that we don't know each other. Even today, I mean, as connected as we could be, we don't know each other, so we don't acknowledge how you know how big the crowd is. So I think we should get organized, and the only liberation will come from us. Only us can liberate us. We have been oppressed for so many years. We cannot expect the oppressor to come and say, "Oh, we are tired of oppressing you, so now we will give you a break." No, it's never going to happen. It's just going to take different forms all the time. So we have to wise up and strategize and plan for the future. Not to be too distracted by what is around us now. We should just think forward and get organized and do things that are going to matter and have more impact on the generation coming after us, I think.
Write our 100-year plan. Thank you, Nelly. I'm going to say goodbye for today. I'm going to see you backstage in a couple of minutes.
Yeah. Thank you so much
for all this wisdom that you've shared with us and, sharing your story with us. And I'll see you in a few minutes.
Thank you. Take care. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
So this has been Black Genius with Nelly Wandji and myself, Olade Shiombola. We appreciate you watching. If you enjoyed this episode, please give us a like on Facebook, YouTube, share it with somebody that you love and who is interested in luxury and African cultural production. You can connect with us on Instagram at Norpress, Twitter at Norpress, YouTube, and Facebook. If you'd like to support our work, go to noralabs.org/donate and click on Norfest to donate. We love you. We appreciate you. Thank you for all your support. And we'll see you back here next week with another Black Genius. Take care, eat your greens, take your vitamins, and stay covered. Love you.